Huckleberry Finn was written over a period of time in the 1800s. This was a completely different time compared to the world we live in now. During the 1800s, slavery was an accepted practice and an accepted and common practice. The word nigger was used in everyday vocabulary. Nigger was not used in a derogatory fashion against black people at the time. The word nigger was derived from the Latin term negro, meaning ignorant, foolish, uneducated. This has very little to do with race or origin, but has been deemed as a term for African Americans due to the lack of education they received in antebellum America. History has been full of things that, if we look back at them now, seem so illogical. At the time, they were the most advanced ideas. If we had accepted history and did not advance, people would still think the world was flat and at the center of the universe. As a woman, if we hadn't advanced, I would not be standing here speaking to you. I would be at home, barely receiving an education, preparing a marriage. At the time of these things, they were as normal, just as blatant racism was at the time of the publishing of this book. This does not mean our world has not advanced. The advancement of our world is what has allowed people to start the controversy of the racism of this book, surrounding this book. But this does not mean we have cured racism. People tend to think after the civil rights movements, racism just disappeared. This is not the case. Okay. Argument part 2. At the time of the publishing of this novel, this book was not racist. When the book was written, it was written in the language Mark Twain had heard. When spending time on his uncle's farm, he listened to the slaves speaking and got his information for speaking styles from what he heard. He also spoke about when he saw the slaves chained together, about to be sent to a slave trader, how they were the saddest faces he's ever seen. As a rule, a man who is not racist would not sympathize with slaves. Just as using terminology today, specific to our time, Mark Twain's book was written in the language and terminology of his time. And then questions for Jim. Can you name a time you have been treated in a racist way? Tell us about the life you've lived. Is it different from others around you? Could you possibly give us examples of racism in a current era to racism from the late 1800s? How have people changed or remained the same depending on his answer? Why do you think the book should be banned? Or do you think the book should be banned? Why or why not? Huck thinks of you as a white on the inside. How does that make you feel? What are your thoughts?